Welcome to the City Lifestyle podcast, where we cover the people, places, and businesses that make up our community. We're glad you're here.
You know what I love about this right now is you don't know what we're about to talk about.
I am very anxious. I am uncomfortable with not knowing the plan.
Well, I am just going to start by saying this podcast is very demure. It's very mindful.
Oh, God.
See the studio? It's beautiful. It's well lit.
If I have to hear that saying one more time, I swear, everyone is using that same saying right now. It's like, we get it. You're demure. You're mindful.
Okay, take a breath. Take a breath, Crissie.
Sorry.
But yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about these trends. We just had Storyville Road, talking about like stories and how you kind of craft the journey and why some of these trends don't fit the message, right? So let's dive into that in this podcast.
Okay, here we go.
But take a breath. Breathe, relax. I didn't know I was going to trigger you that quickly with this.
Well, no, it's just, it's funny because it's like we all spend so much time on our phones and we're scrolling and we end up watching a different iteration of the same video how many times? No. There's not that creativity or whatever else. People will jump onto these trends with using the audio, and it's like, that's why as soon as you said it, I'm like, oh my God, here we go.
I hope we got a really solid eye roll for the social clip. That would be fantastic.
Oh, no. Well, to be fair, you didn't tell me what we were talking about. I had no idea. I was feeling worried about it. But yeah, I think that a lot of these businesses are jumping on because they want that viral factor on their social media. They want the eyeballs. But I think as we look at that, the bigger question is that actually driving the needle for what they're trying to accomplish? Yeah. And what is the viral view giving you besides attention? Yeah. Is it actually giving you revenue that's going to hit your bottom line?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it and touched on it, excuse me, a handful of times. So,
that cough that won't quit.
Oh, man, it's brutal. I've controlled it pretty well, all right? Leave me alone.
I've seen you be like, holding it in a little bit.
But looking at, like, let's talk about a small business, their goals. How does social play into that, especially when we're looking at, like, viral clips and those kind of things versus overall strategy where, again, some of the stuff we've talked about, the last episode we just did, who is that key person and how do you stay authentic to the audience?
I think it goes back to the messaging that you're putting out. Does it have anything that even pertains to do with your business at all? That was one of the conversations we just had in the last podcast. It's like people are doing dancing videos, they're doing all these crazy things, but is that actually in any type of way related to your business and your brand and who you are as a person? You know, I mean, you've had conversations with clients about this. Have you had any clients that have seen a huge lift off of a viral video?
It's interesting to me because we'll see we'll see them, they'll get a bump, like these massive views on it. But then when we ask like what happened, they are not quite sure, right? So it's like we'll get tens of thousands of views on something, it goes a little crazy, but the businesses that are on a local small local business, the local customers aren't going to find them based on that viral clip, right? So I just got hit with one the other night where I'm just like in bed scrolling, whatever, killing time. And it's one of those splice clips where it's just like you see something funny and then it splices over to the business. And it's like a men's health clinic in Florida. I'm like, I'm not going there. I'm not going to fly to Florida and spend money here when there's like 18 in this town alone.
I mean, do you see those as more of a marketing play or more of a branding play?
I don't even know because it's like they're doing it for the viral aspect, right?
Yeah.
And like they're funny.
Yeah.
But I'm not that person's demographic. Like I'm not in Florida.
Yeah.
I probably fit the rest of it, but I'm not going to Florida based on that viral clip.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I did a little tester video on TikTok just because I wanted to see what would happen. I'm in marketing. I'm curious. I just want to see what's going to happen if I use one of these, trending audios or whatnot. And it was a still image of my husband and my dog, and there's nothing really to it.
Is this the Target one?
No.
Oh.
No, it's just a different one. I'm branching out into the tiki-taki. But I just want to see what would happen because I was curious. And I got like 1,700 views or whatever else. And I'm like, who's watching? Who's looking at this still image of my husband and my dog in the middle of TikTok? But I was thinking about it just from a branding standpoint. And it's like, is there value to social media? 1,000% there is. But I also feel like you still have to go back to the root of the views are great, but you need to make sure that you're incorporating some kind of a message that relays what you want the person who's seeing it to do, and make sure that there's some kind of a targeting factor to it so that it's serving a purpose versus just garnering attention that's not actually going to provide any ultimate value.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, I mean, looking at what we're doing, right, we're building out our strategy for all sorts of things. Like we have our publication that goes out there. We're starting to do client interviews in our podcasts. We have like the TikTok plan, like we're about to roll out and distribute. When we're looking at our partners and our businesses here in town, how should they go about like a media strategy like that? So looking at, again, like what do we want to do on social media? Are we putting out messaging? Are we trying to do viral stuff? How do they combine that? Like what are your thoughts on that?
I have this conversation a lot with my clients about making sure that everything is saying the same message. I think a lot of times people can, put out one message on their print and put out a different message on their social media, and then they're saying something different on their website. And a lot of times those messages aren't really complementing one another. It's, to me, if I were to advise a client, I would tell them, make sure that everyone who's in the boat is rowing in the same direction, right? Make sure that what's in your social media is saying the same message as what's on your website, is saying the same message that's in our magazine, and really just making sure that all those key components are rowing in the same direction.
One of my college professors would be so proud. Integrated marketing communications. That's the entire topic right there.
Of like rowing the boat in the same direction.
How do all the pieces work together?
It sounds like it's common sense, but I think sometimes as business owners, you're moving so fast, and sometimes you have to slow down to move faster. Who said that recently?
I don't know.
Somebody who is very smart. No. But sometimes you got to slow down to be able to...
Trying to just like puff yourself up right there?
Ha, 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 ha. But you really do. You have to be able to slow down and take a look at that. And I say that, hi, pot, I'm kettle, we have to do the same thing because... we've got so many different things that we're doing all at once. We're going to events. We're meeting with clients. We're working on strategy. We're coming up with messaging. Like, there's a lot of different things that we're doing, too. And I think we, even as business owners, have to make sure that we're slowing down to ask that question, too. But if you were to, if you were to look at your clients and they were to say, well, Chad, we just want the attention. We don't care if it does anything for the bottom line. What would you say to that?
I don't believe you. like straight up, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so you're going to do this and you're going to, even if it's like a viral clip, right? Like you're going to take time out of your staff's day, whatever amount of time you had to do that. Like how many different iterations did we try to do this dance or this clip, or like you're interrupting the regular routine of your employees, whether that's medical office, construction, anything, right? Like that's taking time and energy away from people. And from me, I have a hard time saying like, yeah, go do it. Like you could get views, it'll be funny, blah, blah, blah. But it's just like, what is the like kind of unviewed cost of that at the same time, versus
time is money. Not
having a strategic vision and goal to get a new client or get a new patient, and how is that going to work, right? I mean, I'm a parent. I have 2 little kids. I've yet to see some dental office or anything like that do the fun TikTok and be like, yeah, let me go spend thousands of dollars on my daughter's braces because of this TikTok video.
It's funny. So one of my clients, and I don't know if we're not really referring to our clients by name specifically in these conversations, but I do have one client who is in the medical industry, and they put out a lot of videos on social media, and they have used some of those things, but when they use them, they're giving a tip alongside it or some piece of information. And I think if you're going to use any of these viral clips or, that are trending right now, that's the way to do it, right? You can use those, but make sure that you're still giving the reader or the viewer something that they can take away that they may not have known before. Because when I see those videos, I'm like, I didn't know that. Yeah. Like, I didn't know that about, hair loss or hormones or whatever else they're talking about in this moment. And it's interesting, and it makes me want to continue to go back to that page because they're quick little tips where it's something that I might be able to incorporate in my own life that I may not have known before.
Yeah, I mean, it's purpose, right? So
it's purpose-driven.
And I mean, I don't think we talk bad about social media at all, but I want to reinforce that, right? Like, social media done really well works really well.
It does.
And when you're having someone that's just viewing it, right, and saying like, hey, I saw value out of that, and like it was funny and engaging, like, you're going to get the follow, you're going to get the share to someone else. And like, that's where you start to see some of that momentum. But it starts with understanding who is your core client and what is going to resonate with them, right? So going back to what Christine said, it's like, who is that hero and how are you focusing on them?
Well, I had a conversation this past week that really kind of showed me how old I was, because I was talking to a client who said they didn't want to do TikTok because they didn't really understand it and they didn't know how to go about putting themselves out on TikTok specifically. And in my mind, I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is how the boomers probably felt when they had to go onto social media to begin with Facebook, with the Facebook, when it was the Facebook. And I was joking with this person saying, are we the boomers with Facebook now? Like, we're trying to figure out.
We're getting up there. Welcome.
I know. We're trying to figure out the TikTok. But I think that also goes back to just
TikTok.
The tiki-taki.
Yeah.
I call it the tiki-taki as a joke because it's, I'm old now. But it goes back to that authentic version of, as long as you're being your authentic self, people don't care if you're, if you mess up on something or whatever. Look at us. We mess up all the time on this podcast.
Some of us have massive outbursts.
I had an outburst in one. I said, so many times that it drove me to join Toastmasters and try to become a better speaker.
Well, I mean, it's working.
I hope to God, because I will just apologize to anyone who's watched this thing in the past. I'll get better, I promise. But there's another one. Yeah. But it is who we are authentically, and people are either going to watch the content and try to get something from it, or they're not. And at least we're being our true selves.
Yeah.
So
this episode was meant to be just like a little quick and shorter for like the viral aspect of it, right?
Oh, God.
But if we're looking at like a small local business that we work with, we don't work with, I mean, here in Vegas, here anywhere, what is your recommendation on how to build like a viral clip, or trying to go after viral clips, into a larger overall strategy that includes not only social media, but everything else you're doing, right? Like, how do they tie that piece into it?
Well, really quick, before I jump into that, I had one thought. One of my dear friends, I have a couple of friends that are now influencers in that space. They got into the social media game early. They're incredibly creative.
Probably great guests.
They would make great guests. And we'll have them on at some point. But it's interesting because when I moved into the magazine space and took over the social media account, you're so, what should I put? Like, does this make sense? Is this going to be funny? Is this, what are people what's going to resonate with people? And it was funny because my college roommate told me, she's like, just put it out there.
Yeah.
She's like, just do it. She's like, just put it out there and just be yourself. And she was able to build her luxury travel business by sharing what she knew, what she felt comfortable with, what she, what really resonated with her. And it's interesting now. I mean, she's got over 100,000 followers, and she's built a huge brand off of this now. She's like, stop hesitating. She's like, I hesitated way too much in the beginning, and it was interesting. But going back to your question about how to build that into an overall strategy, I think it really goes back to what I said earlier about just making sure that the boat's rowing in the right direction. All the rowers in the boat are rowing in the same direction is really what it is. Is what you're putting on social speaking to your print, to your digital, to your TV, to anything else that you're doing. Like
client experience when they walk in the door. Like, it's all got to connect, right?
I mean, how many times have you looked at an ad or something that somebody had on social, taken the action that you've been told to take, and it leads you to this dark abyss that has nothing to do with what the message said?
More than once.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And as a consumer, not as a marketer, but just as a consumer, what do you do when you get there? You bounce.
Yeah.
You leave. You're confused. You don't really know what to do. So I think looking at it from a holistic standpoint it really goes back to just the overarching strategy, knowing what the goal is that you're trying to accomplish. And that in itself is a whole other question. You know, we've talked about this. Like, what are you trying to get the consumer to do? Mm-hmm. Do you want them to pick up the phone and call? Do you want them to go to the website? Do you want them to walk in the door? Marketing should be something that a third grade level person can understand easily. A third grade person can easily understand the action that you want them to take. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I mean, I think you're right. It's looking at overall, what are the goals, right? So a lot of times with us, we work backwards. So what are you trying to accomplish? Mm-hmm. How does City Lifestyle fit into that? Does it fit into it? Mm-hmm. Are we looking at other media options they're doing? Like, do they do Google ads? Are they running TV, radio, whatever it is? Are they running social media? Is that social media outsourced? Is it actually someone in the office doing it? Are they doing paid part of that? Like, are they actual ads? Are they just boosted? All these different aspects to it. And I think when you're talking about like the strategy of how do those pieces work together, 100%. Is it okay to still do like a fun little video here and there? Of course. But I think what we see is a lot of businesses want to chase that as opposed to saying, here's our audience, here's our message, here are the values we offer, this is the benefit we're going to provide to this audience, and sticking to that type of messaging where you can still layer the trends in, but I mean, the very demure thing, I think, is just like, what are we doing here? You know?
Demure.
Yeah.
What is it? Very demure.
Very mindful.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
Well, I think that this was an interesting one because I literally had no idea what you were going to ask me coming into this.
Quick hit episode.
Quick hit episode. Thank you for joining today. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.